Well, welcome to you, and we're in conversation with Professor Howard Alper, Chair of Canada's Science, Technology and Innovation Council, and also co-chair of IAP, a global network of science academies, all ahead of this big Rio conference. Professor, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. We had very little movement after COP17. What do you believe the key themes are that are going to emerge from this upcoming conference?
Yes, COP17 has not been particularly successful in terms of subsequent implementation. And in the follow-up to Rio, the original Rio, I expect some movement on key environmental issues, several key environmental issues, and also in terms of sustainability in other arenas, such as education, arenas that are not obvious, perhaps, and in building capacity for development in electricity. This is one of our major challenges in developing countries, a number of developing countries. Access to clean water, those are important to consider, in addition to the already announced major themes.
What specific outcome would you like to see emerge from this conference, then, having listed some of those priorities?
Well, in the latter two, I would say getting access to water to citizens of different countries is really important. Access to electricity is highly beneficial for kids studying at home at night who have to use kerosene or other, who are open to getting bitten by Anopheles mosquito and having malaria. So addressing those two challenges, which from a scientific perspective are not challenges, they are leadership issues. Leaders of nations and the political establishment must make priorities to address issues such as water, electricity, education, guaranteed education for children through high school, and of course health.
All absolutely critical, but let me also suggest to you that given the parlous state of the global economy,
right.
One, the money is not necessarily there, and two, aren't priorities starting to shift? Aren't they starting to change slightly? This is going to be a very difficult discussion.
Yeah, the Rio conference, there are very different opinions on the probability of extent of success coming out of it. And if we as the global community, can come up with just one or two major initiatives to implement, that would be progress.
Do you believe that there is more consensus now than there perhaps was at COP17? That there's a greater understanding of those priorities?
There's better understanding, but agreement from a political perspective, I think, is challenging.
What about developing economies such as South Africa? What role do they have to play?
I think they have a key role to play, because...
But their voices aren't always heard.
No, and it won't be. That's reality. But they can make some excellent suggestions put forward for policy on the issues that they deem to be the most important, not only to South Africa and globally. And they can also marshal other countries to work in partnership with them to achieve some of the goals.
How do you do that? How do you find that consensual partnership that you're talking about?
This is a great question. And I go back to the point that with effective leadership, with meetings on regional basis and on global basis, that is within Africa, within Latin America, and so on, one can put together a team that is going to bring forward to Rio proposals on the top priority, one or two items to pursue.
Leadership is important at a political level. I think that you've said that to us. But what about the role of the private sector and the leadership role that it needs to play, but also setting that enabling environment? What do they need to do to the business leaders that are watching our conversation at this time?
And the business leaders should have by now, considering this conference is coming up very soon, been galvanized into action to work with the political side and with NGOs and other partners to move the agenda forward. If they haven't, it's too late.
And that sounds like a very
opinion.
idealistic statement, because business always has its own agenda and its own set of free market priorities.
They have free market priorities, but many have take social responsibility very seriously. And I've seen that in my own country, Canada, and to great effect. So I think we can take a optimistic perspective, provided you orchestrate this very well. And that is where South Africa can make a difference.
Professor Howard Alper, thank you.